we are live. Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to another edition of Mic Cincy. Nathan Ivey with you, your humble host and moderator. We got the voice of reason, Kevin Aldridge with us. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, bro. I like the tie. I like the shirt and tie combo, man. Looking very business-like there.
Okay, appreciate it. Listen, we got to pivot here. You know, that's the nature of show business and podcasts. I had planned to do like a special sort of a cookout edition, but our co-host things happen. You know, people are very busy. That's why I say it all the time. People are very busy. I really appreciate their time. So I'm not sure if we're going to have Tamaya and Laketa on with us today. And Alandes may get a chance to top on. If not, we will do what we do and catch up with them sometime next week or the week after. But I appreciate their consideration no matter what. So this might be a day where maybe we get more calls in today. That works for me. We can definitely do that. So for the people who are in the audience, really appreciate you for being here. I want to scroll back through. Usually we try to get started right about 2:15, but I was trying to hold it out to make sure we got a lot of people in. And I see there's a lot of comments in here. So it looks like some of these comments might have been from even maybe a previous show. Not really sure, but we're here nonetheless. Let me go back. I think I can find the beginning of it right here. Yeah, here it is. Shahira writes, no, it was Pamela. No, it was Deanna. She writes, she's got her plate and her seat. I appreciate it. It's still gonna be a cookout. It'll just be Kevin and I today. So we'll make it work. Pamela writes, good afternoon, Nathan, Kevin, and guest panelists. Shahira writes, good afternoon, Hot Mic crew and everyone here. Happy Friday, y'all, and TGIF. That's right, it is Friday. It's great to be alive. Brenda writes, good afternoon, Nathan, Ivey, crew, and family. Good to see you. Caprice writes, good afternoon. Terrace is in the house. He says he's in the Hortons Barbershop. Everyone tuned in. All right, what's up to the Hortons Barbershop? Appreciate y'all being here. Dina writes, good afternoon, everyone. He said, we grilling peppers? Yeah, we grilling peppers. Pat writes, good afternoon. Regina writes, good afternoon. Pamela writes, who made the potato salad? Which is always important. Sierra writes, happy Friday. Are we waiting on Kevin to sprint over from the buzz? A little bit. Brenda writes, I brought the deviled eggs. My wife does the deviled eggs, but you can bring yours as well. Terry writes, anything to do with eggs, I can only get that from one or two people. You know what I'm saying? Mom, wife, me. That's it. Terry writes, good afternoon. Regina writes, I like my steak well done. So do I. Vanina writes, good afternoon, Nate, guest and crew. Jared is here. Good to see you. Darren writes, I'm not sure how after day I will be, but I'm going to talk my ish. Well, I'm glad. Thank you for being here. Nate, I started using a Sony camera for some angles, and I like it. Okay. Yeah. Marquetta's here. Got family in the house. Fanon writes, LOL, Phil wasn't invited to the cookout. Phil is invited, but he had things going on today, so for sure. But somebody mentioned you were fresh off of sitting in for Lincoln Ware today. How was the experience? Good time?
Oh, man, it's great, man. I'm loving it. You know, the more I do it, the more comfortable, I kind of get with it, just sort of learning the ropes, learning the callers, and much like our chat here, the chat on the buzz is fire, man. I tell you, just some of the comments in there just had me cracking up. A lot of personality. So I have fun with it, man. Much like with Hot Mic, I was saying, you deal with some heavy issues, but then you also learn how to kind of have fun with some of the stuff and just enjoying the people, man. That's what it's about for me is getting to know more people around the city, whether it's through the chat or the callers. And, that's really what it's about, man, is just another angle to build relationships. So it's good.
Sounded good. I was tapping in. I was in the comment section a little bit under the Hot Mic Facebook page. Sounds good to me. I love it. Let's get to the topics here. I'm going to go straight through the topics. I'm not going to change anything up. We'll stay with the agenda. And so today we're doing a little something different. It's still going to be the cookout. It'll just be me and Kevin up here, and everybody else will kind of be in the chat section. But I wanted to start with some different type of topics that were more about, looking at the world through a particular lens rather than just jumping straight into topics. Our first topic will be about Cincinnati and council voting to appropriate $8 million for an entertainment venue, Riverbend. We'll get to that in a second. But first plate, what's the biggest issue facing Black America today? Is political division within Black America now threat than external position, or I'm sorry, external opposition, in your opinion?
So you mean like the different political perspectives among Black people? Is
Yeah,
that it versus? I don't necessarily know if that's the biggest threat. I mean, I don't think Black people have ever been a monolith of thought. Like I think we've all been have had different perspectives on it, and particularly as we have come out of a segregated society and greater opportunities have created, I think, somewhat different experiences among some Black folks. There might have been a time in our history where you could have made the argument that a lot of us were kind of in the same boat. We were all economically, we were kind of in the same boat. Socially, we were kind of in the same boat. And I think as we've come out of that, there's been enough divergence that's given people different life experiences, which I think contributes to some of the political division, maybe some of the political division that you see. But for me, the biggest issues that Black people face in America right now, I think they're all kind of interconnected. So what I'm about to say, kind of like one feeds off of the other. But I would say economic disparities, I would put that at the top of the list. And a lot of that is fueled by, continued systemic racism and discrimination that exists. So those two are kind of intertwined. And then I would also say health. So if I was giving you a big three of the issues that I think are probably the biggest for Black people, would be economic disparities and kind of like the wealth gap, continued systemic discrimination and racism that exists, and sort of the general overall health of our people from a physical standpoint. And a lot of those things, I mean, they're interconnected. So really you pull on one thread and it affects the other two. And that's kind of what I think.
I've seen somebody, and it's been an ongoing conversation, like on some circles on social media. People are saying that now under the Trump admin, that Black people are going through a new Jim Crow era. What do you think about that? Do you agree with that? Disagree with it?
I mean, I would need to know more about what people meant by Jim Crow. Is that metaphorical or literal? I would disagree if you're saying literal. I think we do have to be cognizant of the rollbacks of things that people are trying to do to roll us back, like with voting rights. You could look at some of the things that they're doing with history and with DEI, but I think it's a lot harder to do those sorts of things now than maybe it was back in the day, where you didn't have social media, where you didn't have as many outlets for people to communicate. It's like, fine, you want to take a book out of public school. Okay, you might be able to do that, but you still can't stop me from getting the information, right? Like that's where I think like these efforts to kind of sort of erase history, where we talk about that, I don't know that you can actually do that. Like, I don't even know if it's actually like possible to do that, as long as we internally, keep the messaging and the stories alive. And I think you got people who vigorously fight for, the true telling of history. And so I think, yeah, you might be able to change a museum exhibit. Yeah, you might be able to say we're going to take these books out of school libraries, but I think it's a lot harder to roll some of these things back now. Like some of the voting rights stuff and the gerrymandering, yes, that is a very real threat that some people are trying to do to roll back the clock. I think some of the attacks I can see where some people come with arguments about DEI. DEI wasn't perfect. You can make the argument about who benefited most from DEI, whether that's white women or whether it was actually minority groups or other people other than Black people. I think that's a fair conversation and debate, but I don't think what you can overlook is that if you don't keep the pressure on these companies and organizations to make sure that they're intentional about diversifying their workforces and making that a priority, then I think you slip back into what you kind of see going on with the Trump administration, mostly white or pretty much 97, 98% white, and this notion that, everybody else is just not as qualified, which we know isn't true.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of diversity in the Trump administration at all. Outside of HUD, that's all you really ever see, and it's a big difference from the Biden. It's a huge difference from the Biden administration, where you had a whole lot more of diversity in terms of the people that would come to the podium, the people who are running these different, parts of our government, and I just wonder what that overall effect is going to be. So I'm with you. I think that sometimes I feel like it's over exaggerated when I hear people making claims about slipping into a new Jim Crow. But then in other areas, I feel like there's more accuracy to it than people are comfortable to admit to themselves. Right?
Mhm.
The more this whole Trump administration has been fascinating. It really has. Just as an observer of humans, it has been very interesting to see how our institutions, systems, and people are responding to this type of pressure. And some people quite literally have buried their head in the sands, and some people have put their it's like they're going to close their eyes and say la 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 la, and they think that's going to get them through it. And then
Mhm.
some people have just, and some institutions and organizations have just acquiesced, bent the knee, and it's kind of like, let's just wait this out. But I think it's all, unfortunately, potentially um, dangerous to the bedrock of our country. Pressure and time has carved out the Grand Canyons. So
Absolutely.
to believe that pressure and time can erode some of our political systems that's run by human beings, as flawed as human beings are, I just don't think that people are really paying attention. I feel like they think like, and I see this with some black people, not all. They're kind of like, oh, the midterms will change it, or in 4 years it'll change. And I think this is different. This is different. But we got Alandes in the hell. Hey, Alandes, thank you so much. I appreciate you making time for us. I know you are super busy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm
Uh,
not super busy. I'm retired.
Well, you're doing things, Black Art Speaks, and whatever else you're doing with your life. I
Yeah.
just respect people's time.
No, I
That's all.
appreciate it. It
So
did say Tuesday, just so you know. So I am sorry. I hate to be late for things.
yeah, it's all good. We're gonna make it work. So this is
Hey,
a
Kevin.
special.
Hey, Alandis.
We were supposed to have Laketa and Tamaya with us. Things happen. I totally understand. I only say that because it's going to be on the cover, not in any way to try to make them feel bad. No reason to. We'll make it work. But it's still a special cookout edition where we talk about the world through a specific lens, our lens. And so I started the conversation a little bit different. The first question is, what's the biggest issue facing Black America today, in your opinion?
Black America. We're the biggest issue facing us. I think so many things are happening that actually impact us, that how we're responding to it is really becoming the problem. Because we can't, um, things impacting us, it's all how we show up for it is the important piece, because sometimes you can't change it. And when we could change it, we didn't. So we, and are we talking Cincinnati or globally?
Both, all.
I think like it's almost like in buckets. You have to look at it to answer the question. So if we answer the question about where we are and we think about politics in Cincinnati, we're the problem because we are 45% of this place. And there is no reason why we don't run this place. And the reason we don't is because of how we show up for everything, for voting, for conversations, for pushing back, for accepting discrimination and acting like it's okay. We have the ability to run this place. So that's what I think just about Cincinnati. Um, and we don't get involved as much. Now, why? We can all talk about where we've been. We can talk about oppression. We can talk about how they purposely and intentionally make us feel like crabs in a bucket, like how like we can talk about how we got here. I'm just talking about the fact we're here, and getting out requires us to understand that we have to exercise our first right to vote.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting what Alandes was just saying, and Nathan, I think she did a much better job, I think, than I did, sort of in answering your initial question about the diversity of thought or politics, was sort of how you put it. And I think that people have different views about how you should show up in the Black community. And I think that's the problem. It's not that Black people don't show up, but they have their own ideas about how to show up. So when you talk about voting, right, not showing up for some people is a way of showing up. It just don't match your definition of showing up, right? So it's like almost like a resistance to the system. Like you have those people who don't believe in voting, and that Black people who are participating in a system set up by white folks that's not set up for you is a fool's errand, right? I mean, like we've talked to some of these people who say, what difference does it make who you vote for? This is still a system that's controlled by the white man. Black people get in there, they get co-opted, nothing ever moves forward. So what difference does it make to vote? So my stance is I'm not going to show up, and that's how I'm going to show up, because I'm not going to participate in this system that I believe to be broken, and it's not really advancing us anyway, right? It's fool's gold.
Yeah, we've all heard it, but that's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, but I'm just expressing, when you talk about what are the challenges, when Alandes talks about us being our biggest challenge, like that mentality is a part of the challenge that you got to overcome. And simply saying that's a ridiculous thought among those people, as even though that may be how you feel, that doesn't get us any closer to coming together to in the way that we talking about we need to show up. Because like I'm assuming, Alandes, when you say show up, you're talking about collectively, that we need to show up better collectively as a people and show up in a certain way better.
Yeah. So let me take it a step further then, because I think voting is singular, and it's just about one piece of what we have to do. But when we say we don't, normally that's the lack of knowledge or education or understanding really how everything works together. Sometimes when we lack that information, we show up, we think we're actually fighting something. Some people think fighting that way actually is doing something for us, and I don't know how else to show them that it's not. But here's the case in point about where education is key. And I don't mean, I'm not asking everyone to go get a degree. I'm just asking them to listen and be open, because I have been open to not voting. And then my dad is in my ear and he's deceased. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm remembering what he taught me, and I'm remembering the struggle to get us something, right? And I know that it was not established for us to have a voice. And anytime people try to keep you out of having a voice, is probably where you need to make sure your voice is. So just that should be enough for me to say, it takes me a couple minutes to go vote, right? Even if I don't look to see how to vote. So that's first thing I just say, is how do we educate each other, and how do we have productive conversations that make people listen enough to actually say, that's what I'm gonna do. So I think in today's world, where we are right now, is like, I'm focused on trying to get people to vote. I'm also focused on showing people the impact of not voting. So you can't borrow money from me anymore. Like, this is just family stuff or expanded things if you didn't vote, or if you voted for the wrong person in my life. Like, don't come for me for nothing. You get me, because I think you just not showing up for yourself. So why should I show up for you? You should. So there's unintended consequences that's happened for people that I think now we need to be showing them, so that next time they know to vote. Is that making sense? So I do think, Nate, what you're saying is that people really think it's okay not to vote, but it's up to us who know better to educate in a loving manner. That's one thing we need to do. And then I think the other thing is that the only people who can save us is us. So I'm never going to claim it's anyone else's responsibility. I am going to tell them where it's there. They might have helped get us here. But if we don't figure out how to work together, then we're going to be even worse off. So right now, when I say 45%, it used to be a little higher, but we don't agree with each other. So we take our freaking ball and we go home. And I'm like, really? You know, I had someone recently tell me to stay in my lane when it came to gun violence. And they told me my lane was art. Well, most people who know me know my lane is not art, right? I've been fighting this corporate America all kinds of ways. And our collective lane is everything. Anything negatively impacting us should be our lane as a community. And we don't know how to work together, which is our next piece of power. And everyone who's doing something, I don't care if it impacts a half a person, we need to keep doing it. We don't need to be switching off doing one thing to another. We need to collectively say, I focus on adults. I say, don't jump over their mama to talk to their kid, save their mama, and let their mama save their kid. That doesn't stop me from working with people like Eddie, who works with kids. Do you get what I'm saying? It's all of these lanes, but we can't come together. So the only problem we have in Cincinnati is us. The three of us and anyone else a part of it. We're the problem.
Yeah. I would say on the voting thing, and I think we're all pro-voting folks. Like, I don't think any of us fall into that category of your vote doesn't matter and voting being a crucial part of that. But before you got on, Alandes, I talked about the economic piece. And I think that voting without a significant economic piece, and this is not to say that our vote doesn't have power, but here's kind of the dynamic that I see. And this is the reality that you can't get around. Voting has power, but money is more powerful in politics. And I think a lot of times what you see is we can get people elected and we elect our people, but then we become frustrated when moneyed interests get those people voting in a certain way for them that don't serve us. And I think, we all the time had, like, I just made this statement earlier on Lincoln Show. You got all Democrats right now who running the city of Cincinnati. That's what the people wanted. Vote your Democratic slate. That's what you got. But there's no question you got some corporate Democrats on there, even among your black people who are on Cincinnati City Council. Some of them may not like me saying that, but I'm going to say it. You got some corporate Democrats that share your skin color on there.
Are you going to put some names out there? Or are you going to leave it like that?
Not going to do that.
Do you want?
You knew I was going to ask. I'm naming the names.
No,
go right ahead, bro.
But what I'm going to say, I mean, just look at the votes. Look at the votes.
Yeah.
I mean, I ain't got to put no name on it. I ain't got to put no name on it. Look at how they vote.
But Kevin, you're skipping. So, okay, I don't want to skip over the voting piece, and now you're skipping over. But okay, and don't.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to say, Alandes, I'm not trying to diminish the vote. I'm saying that in addition to voting, black people, we can't get around this notion that we got to begin to build an economic base that's going to bring some financial power to it as well. And that is going to require us. We spend more money than almost any other group, but we don't spend it with each other. We have a short tolerance for black business. Black business, you go to a black business, one thing ain't right. Yeah. And you like, I ain't never going back there again. You know what I'm saying? Yet you'll go to McDonald's, Wendy's, so they mess up your order or whatever, and you go back there and you give them that money. Other communities of color don't do that. Look at how the Hispanic community, and this is what we always complain about. Look at what the Hispanics doing. Look at what the Africans doing. Look at what all these people got. That's because they keep their money in their community. So they start businesses and they support their businesses. I'm not saying that they don't spend money at Home Depot and stuff like that. There's some stuff that you can't get around, right?
No, but
what we are bad about consistently, I'm not saying that we don't, but what we are bad about consistently is keeping our money in the community and building a base where we support and spend our dollars amongst each other and begin to try to build up an economic base to where, along with our voting, it has that kind of power.
No, but let's go back though. So I sound like we both agree that we're the problem. Like, I just want to get there. That we both, because everything we're saying is about what we control.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So we agree that one of the largest problems is us. And I agree with how we spend our money. I agree with how we hold each other accountable. I agree that we might pick the wrong people to go in there. Right. And I agree with the money. I believe in the economic piece in such a big way, so much that I look at what Jewish people do in a big way, like even how they run a lot of things financially, because they have figured out that's their lane. That's where they stay. That's who they like, the whole thing. We have been trained not to do that. We have been taught that we are all fighting each other. We have been trained that everything we do is I get to win and you don't. So in corporate America, I wanted people next to me who looked like me. I didn't care if they became my boss one day. I had to pray to get to that. I had to say, I'm not in competition with them. It can be more than one of us. I am worthy of where I am. People cannot make me feel like I'm not supposed to be right here. And that made me comfortable with pulling up a seat for other people who look like me. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And to be productive, I had to quit listening on my way to work to Tupac because he made me get in work and want to kill everybody. As opposed, you know what I'm saying? I had to adjust who I was and figure out how to have my military jacket on under my Ralph Lauren jacket so that I could make strategic moves for us intentionally. And sometimes we get so caught up in who we are, we forget in who we all are. And the other thing is, I agree, we all don't support each other, even when we elect people. But here's the thing. If we collectively make decisions, and if we were back saying, as a community, these are the 4 things you're going to have to do for us to get our vote, and we all held everyone accountable, then I don't care if you one of them little ladies. I'm not going to talk about who's in city council now. I don't care who you are. You wouldn't have a choice but to do what we told you to do. You just wouldn't have a choice. But we don't. Someone asked me, who did I think I am? My name's Alandes, Powell, and I'm a citizen, and we all should act like this. You get what I'm saying?
Like, ask you that for real?
Oh, who look like us. That's what I'm saying, is that when we try to collaborate, if we want money, they make us fight each other and come up with the best idea that they agree with, not that we agree with. So in nonprofits, you have to come up with the idea that they like, and they, not us.
Yeah, and they don't look like you. So yeah. It's like, so that's the thing. That's why I talk about the economic, not just the political, but the economic base of Alandes is when you go to people for money. Oftentimes those people don't look like you. They don't get the struggle. They don't understand the culture. They don't know the history. And so everything that you're giving to them, they're filtering through a lens that is not yours. Yeah. Right. And the dependency on whether you get that money or not, a lot of times means you have to compromise. You have to water it down. You got to make it palatable or understandable for them, which in sometimes can take all of the juice and the energy out of what you were trying to do.
And so impact.
You're right. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, we got to get to a place where we're not begging for money from people who don't get us. Right. But we have the wherewithal within us to do that. We just don't do it. When I started the Kings in Cincinnati, the first thing people told me, I can't tell you how many black people, it was like, good luck. Black people don't work with other black people in Cincinnati. They was like, it's just not going to happen. Black people don't support each other. They're not going to work with you, blah, blah, blah. So my whole paradigm in doing the team was that I was determined to prove that that was not the case. And my philosophy was, if I eat, you can eat too. In fact, if we work it right, the same people that's eating off me, I can steer them to you so that they can eat with you. And the people that's eating off you, you can steer them to me. So if we all use our network and we all support each other, everybody can eat. My success is your success. Your success is my success. Instead of crabs in a barrel where if only one of us can win, we can all win. If we just learn that you bring your people, it's like a good potluck. Any good potluck. Like I bring my people with their dish, you bring your people with their dish, and we get a whole bunch of people around. We got a whole lot of food. We got more than enough food that we can probably eat at a gathering.
Well, Kevin, it begs the question: how long you been doing the Kings now?
This is year 7. Well,
year 7.
With one COVID.
7 years been doing it. People made that observation and told you that. What has been your experience? Do black people work with other black people?
Yeah, yes. I mean, my experiences, I've had, here's the only thing that I would say. And I don't think this is a product of, I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want to make it seem like it's a product of the people. I think it's been a product of our inability to create more widespread awareness about who we are. But my position is just if every black person, or even 50% of the black people in Cincinnati would just buy one ticket to a Kings game all season, the amount of money that would generate for the team and what we could do, and then what we could then turn around and do for the community and in the community. We're thinking about how to help young brothers develop entrepreneurial spirits. We bring people in and let them run concessions. We're looking for opportunities to impact the community in ways that, and I get it, we're not a Reds or a Bengals. I ain't gonna even put us in that category, right? And the Reds do a lot of good things in the community, but I'm talking about creating an economic engine that can be specifically for, like, doing things for our kids and our community. Like, that's the heart with which we're trying to build that. But it takes a certain measure of support to get to that point. And my thing is, there are people in this community that will, and not just the Kings, I'm talking about any business, that black businesses are going to do more for us and our people than anybody else will. They will hire your kids. They will put you on. They will, give back into community what they're able to, but they need that support. Instead, we go and give all of our money to people that you got to go back and beg for that money. And they not even really trying to do for you what your other people, what your own people will. And so I think we gotta break away from some of that mentality and say, I agree with Alandes 100%. We have the wherewithal in us to fix what we need to fix in our community and in our culture, but that requires us to support each other, to show up for each other.
And show up. So here's the other thing too, is that showing up for each other is what we don't do well either. Even when people are doing the right thing, we don't show up like we should. As much as we should. But I think someone, and I try not to look at comments because my brain, y'all know my brain is like, it goes a lot of places. But someone said, what was the solution? And I think that so many times we just like talk about problems, and it's a very good question. I don't know that I know. I'm sure I don't know everything, but don't tell my husband because I try to act like I do. But like falling into this art world, which was really about social justice. And I'll tell you, Nathan and I, when we first met, we didn't agree. Nate didn't agree with me. Do you remember that, Nate, where you were like, when I did the mural, he was like, what? And y'all down there dancing right now. And I had to explain, first of all, I can't hear you.
It wasn't that I didn't agree with you, is that I wasn't going to let city council off the hook by thinking that by supporting a mural outside of City Hall, that was actually tangibles. So it wasn't about what you guys are doing. It was more about the posture that I saw people on city council taking, thinking they had really, really did something. You know what I'm saying? Instead of doing even more and making more of an investment in our communities. But
so, yeah, what people didn't know
we
is
have a disagreement.
Yeah, but what people didn't know is, I didn't take one nickel from city council. I didn't ask them for nothing but give me access to the street. Nothing. I raised the money without them. And, it was at a time where I didn't know creatives. I didn't know any of those. So we get that done. And then I start looking into creatives. And I realized that, they're small businesses. They're people too. They were impacted even more so by COVID in a huge way. And then I realized that all the little things that had happened, how unfair they treated these and it's still, you allowed me to write my op-ed and put it in the newspaper. It is still there. And when we decided to do something that I thought was a solution, was really about giving them the forum to find ways to make money. It was all about economic value for the people. And working together and growing from 17 people to now we're over 150, it was hard. And pulling them together to work together and not separate, and knowing this person might get a job and this one not, is still hard because people are using processes that make us have to work against each other to win. Does that make sense? Because that's how it's set up. But I found one of the biggest challenges was us. Was us and not the people in the collective. Some of this that happened, even like with the MLK that's coming up. It is it's probably going to be the worst thing I ever think. I will never be able to go past that corner when the MLK statue comes out, because I know everything that happened to make that happen, and I know who made the money, and I know who now is winning all kinds of jobs in the Midwest because of what we decided to do here in Cincinnati to continue to tell our Black story and make money off of it. And when it comes to our culture being exploited and people making money for it, and you see murals of Black people and you think we did it and made the money and we didn't, it's huge. It's sad and it's huge. And so when we built Black Art Speaks, I decided I didn't take money from Art Waves. When I found out, I think they needed to do something different, and they told me I couldn't do it. And we just hit our first $1 million year. And now we get to say what we need to do better, but we had to do it ourselves. Does that make sense? Because we have to save ourselves.
Alandes, how do you, if you don't mind, and you ain't gotta, I'm just curious about this from hearing you talk. So how do you primarily raise your money?
I do, and people come and say, let me support, is one way. And now we got to the point where I love getting RFPs that's going for a job and getting it. Mm-hmm. So you go for jobs like the convention center. That was a lot to get us in the door, but you go through doors. And I think what's happened now is what we do is actually building an infrastructure for Black creatives. And also these same Black creatives, they're helping to heal our community. They're helping to change our kids. They're helping to change adults. They're using a voice that's calming through art to actually have conversations that you don't really want to have. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is that people think you have to be Black, and you don't. What you have to be is aligned to what we're trying to do, which is equity. Because you can't get to equality without equity. And that's what I tell people. And then I go and I sit down, but I allow you to tell me, I tell you no. If your money comes with something that that I can't value, then I walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Because personally, I can. I don't make any money doing this. I make sure people understand, and they don't know why I do it then, because I'm blessed. You know, I had a good job and blessed, and now I'm home and get to do this volunteer, and being able to say no, where the artist wouldn't say no. You wouldn't say no to a $5,000 job, right?
No,
I'd
no,
say
probably a few people.
no.
would.
I'm just saying. So the
Mhm.
no's actually make people come back too. So I think we go for grants now, but I don't go for grants to compete with anyone in our organization. I normally go for much higher grants. I go for jobs that require a collective and not just one person. And then when we make money, I put it back in the community. So most of those letters you see, some of them we self-fund, some of them we go to, we have 3 more letters about to come up. And people don't understand, like, just this simple thing about lights in the community, they deter violence, beauty in a community. I just worked with Florida. It was easy for me to work with Florida because I know the guy who had money and they're building homes. And I was able to say, quit building homes and not teaching the people how to keep their grass. So give them a year of the fact you're going to actually cut their grass and help them groom their grass, because you have to teach people that who's never owned a home.
Sure.
And so they want to understand why the home, isn't kept, because they haven't been taught that.
Mhm.
And so even when people give adults money, it has to come with teaching and it has to come with grace. Is that, and sometimes we don't give that. We just do it in ugliness. And I'm not saying I can't be ugly too. I've been ugly on this show. I do not, it does not sit well with me when white people want to just save us. And
Yeah, well,
they want a tick mark when they want to partner with us.
Yeah, that
You
I think
get me?
that's been baked. I think that's kind of been baked in the cake, right? Because the reality in this country is you can't really do anything without white folks acquiescing, right? Even with the civil rights, with everything that we had, they didn't have to. They could have kept and tried to maintain the status quo, but you were able to, King and others were able to appeal to the consciousness of people enough to get a certain number of people to change. A lot of people didn't want to change. Like, that's the other part that we forget about, that is that there was a lot of white folks in this country that did not want to,
and black people didn't want to change either, though. Let's not. Yeah, it's still. It's both of us.
The reason why I asked you that, money, about the funding, which was kind of go back to another point that you made. Like, I would even think about like this new river bend that the city just gave $8 million to. I oftentimes wonder, with as much entertainment and value that black artists bring, entertainers and artists bring to the city of Cincinnati, why is there not some black musical organization like Mimi or the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra in this city that somehow or another channels all of the black talent and groups that come into this city, whether it's locally or whether it's national acts that come into this city? Why don't we have some sort of music and entertainment and event, black events that happen? Why isn't there a black counterpart to that could even be in a position to ask for $8 million from a city to build a music venue, instead of sending all our stuff to Heritage Bank Arena and all of that type stuff? Like, why doesn't something like that exist in Cincinnati that is black owned or black run? I wonder about that.
So honestly, we have went down and talked to city council actually before this even happened, and we laid out, and I personally was there and actually laid out some of the things that really have to happen when it comes to capital expenditure versus programming. And actually, I have another meeting on Monday to go down and talk with a few just about the ecosystem and what we need to do and how unfair it's been. So I went to dating back I went all the way up to 2009 and sitting down talking through it. But these things happen. We fuss, and it still happens. So we don't hold people accountable. We move on so quick. Oh, hey, Laketa, you are?
Hey.
Is that?
Yeah, I'm in the hospital, but I definitely had to get on. I totally agree with both of what you're saying. I do think that it's important that, people need to understand that we do this to ourselves. One of the comments that I made when it goes back to voting is the mere fact that at the end of the day, we're talking about all the Democrats are down there, right? So I'm going to start there and then get into this vote and the pledge and how we do it to ourselves. At the end of the day, most Blacks vote Democrat. Who votes mostly Democrat? Black women, Black men, white women, and then white males. So somebody can tell me they want to know why we're in the condition or the place we are. How do we got 4 white males on council? They are the majority when they support the Democratic Party the least. So when it comes to voting, we do it to ourselves. We want to know where we at. And I don't understand this $8 million pledge for a venue that's not even in the city of Cincinnati. That is in Anderson. And so when we don't get the return on our investment, how are we going to hold them accountable? We can't, because it's Anderson. It's not the city of Cincinnati. It's funny that we always find money to support everything else but our own communities. We have what's going on in Bond Hill and Avondale and all those things. And right now, Bond Hill is the vice president of the Bond Hill Community Council. We are struggling to get a community benefits agreement with the LDG because of city council's vote that's going to tear our communities up. But we can't even get a benefits agreement. We can't even get the council to come to the table. But yet still you come to the table and support and run to Anderson Township to help them as opposed to helping your own communities. So we do it to ourselves is because of the people who we voted in into their office. And then, like you said, we forget. We have a very short mind of what they have done to our community. And we come around again, and guess what? We're going to vote for these same people again because our memory is so short. And then we're mad about what's going on and why our communities look the same is because we can't continually do it to ourselves. And let's say,
I just need to
go ahead.
clarify.
I'm sorry.
I thought the River Bend was in Cincinnati. We're talking about
No.
It's Anderson Township.
It's Anderson Township.
That's Anderson Township.
So, yeah.
That's Anderson Township. So we're spending $8 million. We pledge $8 million for something that's outside of our city. We have no control over, no jurisdiction. But yes, that we can't find $1 for our own neighborhoods.
And right now, they gave $2 million for what we're trying to do through ROMAT. We still have a shortfall, right? And it is, how do I say it? So if we all fuss about it, but we just fuss at each other about it, the only thing we're going to get is a lot of talk.
Exactly.
So first of all, I know that I personally had the conversation with Ivey about how are they going to use capital. And I said, if you build a process that looks like the normal process, and this is verbatim, I had to go back to make sure I told her this before I meet. If you build a process that looks like the normal and it doesn't have an equity lens and then ensure 45% gets back to our community, then you have messed up. So I don't know how they built this or how they decided to give $8 million. I'm excited that they showed their hand, right? I'm excited that it's just a pledge and we haven't gotten to the next thing. But the only way to stop it is if all of us decide it needs to be stopped.
I agree, because they're coming out, it's going to be good for our community. The return on the tax dollars. How? It's not our tax dollars.
So
it's Anderson.
Let me say this. I understand how the tax piece works to quickly make it happen, and they're saying, hey, it's halfway done or whatever. I understand the tax piece. I think that I can tell you who was kind of driving that piece too. And I got the economic value of it, right? But listen, I can build a place for people to come in Roseline, right? Where you don't have to go far, because you don't have to go downtown for everything. And I can do sublets where you can sell tickets and you can go to Roseline and you can have some of the best music and everything right there with a ticket that we'll take care of. That doesn't cost $8 million. But what would have to happen is you would have to want that to happen. But right now, what people want is your land. They want your land.
Exactly.
You better not build much in Avondale because they want Avondale.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You get what? So they don't need to build more stuff downtown because they want downtown.
Right.
The Freedom Center isn't free. It's not doing well because they want that land. You
Exactly.
understand that they've been stealing land since they got here.
Mm-hmm.
And now we help them.
Yeah.
So once we collectively come together and do something, it can be done. But even
Right.
when I have these arguments with people who look like me, they worry. That's what
you gotta pull, so like somebody asked in the chat, like, okay, this has happened, what do I do now? I think the first thing is you got to show up, and you got to show up more than once, and it's got to be persistent pressure. You got to continue to send letters and emails to your council peoples and phone calls, inundate them with your displeasure. I get that everybody can't show up in the middle of the workday for a city council meeting or a hearing, but you can drop an email, you can send a phone call, you can send a proxy if you can't make it down there. But what you got to do is you got to be in their face and let them know that this sort of thing is not okay. Look, here's a perfect example. Scotty was on here talking about their reparation proposal for the rising, was it 15, 17 neighborhoods? I can't remember how many. This brother was only proposing $5 million. If you remember, like, I think that whole reparations proposal was only $5 million. And trying to spread $5 million over 15 neighborhoods, that ain't no real money. Yet people had a problem with that. Why? Because it was going to Black folks.
Right.
It was going to Black neighborhoods, and they got a problem with Black neighborhoods even getting $5 million because you don't deserve it. What have you done to earn it? What did CSO and Mimi do to deserve $8 million? You don't even know why how they're going to use it or what they needed. And that's $3 million more than they were talking about spreading over 15 neighborhoods.
Exactly.
Don't tell me that race don't have nothing to do with this stuff, because the symphony orchestra, somebody said it in the comments, they have got a base that could write. They probably got one or two donors that could write a check for $8 million. They don't need it. They don't need it.
They don't.
And
they'll use that as the reason.
Can't get it.
Yeah. But they'll use that as the reason.
And this is what ought to infuriate not just Black people. It ought to infuriate anybody in the city of Cincinnati who got to ride over a pothole in their neighborhood that can't get filled. That, look, CSO and Mimi gonna be all right. They've been all right. They've been all right. You are not all right. Our neighborhoods are not all right. And none of that money that you generate from Riverbend 2.0, not a single dime of that money is going to wind up in the Rising 15. It's just not.
Not at all.
So the other thing I think you have to look at is that even when you talk about taxes and what's gonna float your way is how do I say it? I'm trying to say it nice. I don't think I can say it nice, so let's keep going. I'm trying not to say anything ugly. I have look, I'm trying to be good, Nate.
You always good. You always good with me.
Look, I'm trying not to say anything.
But here's the question. Should public money fund entertainment while communities are struggling? Because it seemed that there was a big conversation among council members about that.
It can't. When you fund stuff and it has the ability to generate more money and more taxes, that's what people want to look at, because you want to look at how I spend. You spend money, you want to be able to get something back in return besides just some good music, right? But if good music comes with great ticket sales comes with taxes. Ticket sales also allows you to show sustainability where you can keep it going, right? That's what people want to fund, because people want to see that their money did something, made an impact, made money most times. So I get that piece. But the only person who buys tickets or who should make money should just not be people who don't look like us. So what happens is people want to make money off of us. Is that making sense? So they want to have the Heritage Bank. so that we go in there and pay to go see someone, and they're making money off us because we don't own Heritage Bank. I mean, the Heritage Center. Am I making sense? We just spending the money. We're not making the money. Right. So most times when we set something up where we're going to make the money, no one's going for it because they have to invest in that to happen, and they want to make the money. Hopefully, I'm making sense.
It makes sense. But
it's all about
it this way, though. It makes perfect sense to me. But think about it this way. I haven't heard anybody say this. So yeah, they're saying it's on Cincinnati. It's in Anderson Township / Cincinnati on the outskirts over there. But when people go over there afterward, they want to keep the party going. And where are they going to go? They're going to go to downtown Cincinnati for after parties and restaurants. So in that way, it may benefit the city of Cincinnati, right? Isn't that what they're thinking?
It may, but it depends on what sort of acts and things that you're talking about. And so if we're specifically talking about benefits to the Black community, I'm not saying that there's not going to be any benefit that Cincinnati won't see, whether that's from restaurants or, as you're saying, like after party spots, all of that stuff that comes along for those who are going to do that. But then it gets down to this matter of the tax dollars that the city does get. How is that being spent? So it's one thing to say, oh yeah, the city is going to get some tax dollars back, but those tax dollars they're getting back, are any of that flowing into Black communities? Or is that money that they're collecting, which might be a good thing, how much of that is flowing back into Black communities, or is it all going into certain neighborhoods or certain places or being done with certain things? No, that's the part that you never really, you never really get full transparency on. The last thing I'll say is this is about taxpayer support, right? I'm all about the free market. If CSO and Mimi use their own money and they getting Black dollars and white dollars or whatever, that's cool. You put the money up, you built it. Same thing with the Bengals. You know what I'm saying? I ain't hating on the free market. If you putting your money up, get what you can get. That's how capitalism is set up. But when you going with your hand out, asking for taxpayer dollars, that changes the conversation now. I wouldn't have nothing to say about Riverbend 2.0 if they was fully funding it themselves. Go get your money. You put your money up, do what you can do to get your money. But when you're taking tax dollars now, which is part of my money or your money or whoever in the city of Cincinnati, now you opened it up for me to give you my opinion.
Absolutely.
And to ask the questions about where's my money going and how am I going to benefit?
I think it's all fair.
Now.
Let me Jim.
Go ahead.
I think it's all fair. But as I said before, people, if they investing in Riverbend will have an impact in downtown because that's where people are going to go with the after parties. They're going to put together, waiters and bartenders and restaurants and people to sell T-shirts and DJs and all that kind of stuff. Party promoters, right? There's some Black-owned club owners in downtown Cincinnati. They may all benefit from an expanded Riverbend. And the idea that every investment the city council has to make has to do exactly what, one proposal was supposed to do with the Rising 15, I think is unfair. Now, as a Black man, I would love to see that, and I'd love to see the numbers of it, but it may not work that way. And the reality is you're not going to catch the money unless you put yourself in a position to catch the money, right? The onus is on the entrepreneurial spirit of the individual Cincinnatians, Black or whatever, to put yourself in a position so that when they build this new FC Cincinnati complex, you can catch the money. I hear people saying, well, what's that going to do for Black folks? Well, if you haven't put yourself in a position to capitalize, you ain't going to capitalize. Simple as that. You can't sit at home and do nothing and build no business or anything and think you're going to catch what's about to happen. So isn't smart money thinking ahead like, okay, I'm going to start an HVAC company. They may need that. Or I'm going to start doing whatever. Start thinking ahead about what the possibilities could be so you can be in a position to catch some of this money that's about to come into the city. Because if you don't...
But here's the thing, and you can't. You're 100% right. But the challenge has always been in the conversation in Cincinnati is you can catch some of the money, but you're going to catch the crumbs. And that's what always happens with the black businesses. Yeah, you know, when a stadium gets built or when something goes along, yeah, they'll throw, particularly if there's a, what do they call it? A neighborhood, I forget what they call these agreements that they benefits, a community benefits agreement. Yeah, they might throw, you know, a few dollars to a couple of small black contractors, but the big slices of the cake go to the usual big dogs in the city. So yes, you're 100% right. I think you do have some black people, and certainly there could be more that are trying to put themselves in a position to catch the money. But the big dollars, because of the systemic racism and the good old boy network and the things that are set up, it's hard for black people in Cincinnati to get that big slice.
You got to start somewhere.
So, okay, so I'm going to disagree, though, a little bit. I'm going to disagree. First of all, I want to go back to the taxes and where they spend their money. We have to understand that we can go out there and look at the budget. And before the budget is approved, we get to go and give comments about the budget. So if you go and look at the budget and where money is placed, you'll understand that you can only spend the capital, what was in the approved capital budget. You can't spend that in the program. So it's all out there. We have to be engaged, informed, and understand what's happening. Some people have the playbook that we're normally trying to figure out what the playbook is, and normally we're some days late. So it's out there what the plan is. Because I was in the convention center project for the art piece, I got to see a little more that I didn't know before this last year about how they were doing projects. And with the Cincinnati project, they made sure it was the big boys, the small boys, the black boys, the white boys. Do you know what I'm saying? At the table. So if you saw, it was a lot of construction companies. It was a main one, which was a large one. And normally what they use to sit us at the lower margin is based on our ability to show sustainability as a company. Is that making sense? Mm-hmm. So how long have you been doing it? How much do you make? Can you sustain and can you pull it off? We fall apart sometime like that. And the only way not to fall apart is to come together and do it. And we fall apart sometime doing that, if that's making sense.
But here's the difference, I think, in that. If you look at a lot of these white companies that are big boys now, mm-hmm. they fell apart too early on. They ain't always been
I didn't say it was,
but that's what I'm saying. Like that's where the racism and discrimination comes in. Yes, it's tough in all businesses, whether you black, white, or whatever. But the propensity to get second chances and get an opportunity to come back, if you're a black company and you fall apart, you're done. No. Most often, you're done.
Yeah, no, I agree. But what I'm trying to say is that, so that's how it's set up, right? So when you come to the table and you're trying to figure out how to get in, sometimes you have to do it together. And that can be hard for us to sit together. And sometimes you have to be able to have someone who's going to champion for you. Mm-hmm. And then you have to be willing to push. Then after you get in, you got to show up and show out, right? So you can get the next thing. So you have that you have to do. And I will tell you, getting in the convention center, we ended up with, it was hard. I emailed some construction people and said, when you get to the art, include me, right? And they said yes. And I just sent a couple of notes to say that. And all of a sudden, I found out that they had picked the two major art groups. And I'm like, how did that happen? So you send a note. There's like, let me check on it. So all of a sudden, I get a note from the person who's leading it. And it's like, hey, we'd like you to submit a request. So a request can take, it's heavy, right? To do an RFP. So we did it. Sent it. We get to them and they say, hey, based on everything, we want you, your organization, to work for one of the other two white organizations. And what I was able to say, what most people would have said, okay, because it was going to be one of our biggest paydays. What I said is, they can work for me. And let's see how they feel. That's all I can offer you. And I left. because I was okay with that. And they had to call me back. And then we decided we would all work separately. And then I found out their budget was more than mine. So I went back to the table and said, let's change the budget. And it was a heavy lift. We were able to do that. And then it was our turn to do it. And even after we did all this, and we still have a couple pieces going, when it came to the press release, they were saying we worked for someone. So I had to go and say, hold on. Do you know what I'm saying? So it was still a heavy lift. But I will tell you, getting there required people who looked like me that was at the table who would champion for me. Mm-hmm. It took the city to champion for what we could do, right? But the only way we got there is because we're a collective. So if one of the artists would have been trying to get there alone, they wouldn't have gotten there. But the only power we had is that we have 150 people and organizations that we make up, and we don't let each other fail. Is that making sense?
No, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And being able to say no, and being able for people to teach us the process. Yeah. And the only thing we've asked is, tell me the process, I'll follow it. Mm-hmm. But if you don't tell me, and if you don't, because a lot of times they don't open up RFPs for everyone. You have to it's strategic, and it's understanding that we are not fighting each other.
Okay, what is an RFP?
With each other. And that's the hard part.
Proposal.
Alandes,
I'm sorry.
What's an RFP for people who don't know? What does it look like? How many pages is it? Who does it?
Yeah. A RFP is a request for a proposal, and it comes first with a RFQ, which is a request for qualifications. So your qualifications, and so if you come in and your qualifications to go up for this huge thing is you're a two-man show. You've never had a big job like this. You can't show X, Y, and Z. You might not even get the RFP. Is that making sense? So they want to see your qualifications first. So when we go, we're strong, right? We have over 100 years in art, and we're a 5-year company. It's because of who makes us up. So that's the RFQ. Then you get invited to the RFP. Sometimes what happens, especially if it's not tied to government, is you can just do an RFP, or you can decide not to do anything in a private job. You don't have to do that. Is that making sense? But that's what most people do to get the best of the best. And then you decide whether it's national or local and all of that. So you do that. The RFQ is probably a couple pages, and is normally simple because you're just talking about yourself and who makes you up. The RFP, and this is what gets tricky, can be 100 pages, 50 pages. It just depends. And you're proving yourself. And sometimes it's about what you thought up that you're going to bring versus who you are. Do you know what I'm saying? And then depending on if it's government or not, they might have some other things. They might want to make sure you actually deal with, DEI used to be a thing where you had to do X, Y, and Z, not so much anymore. But then they pick who the RFP, and then they might say, we pick 5 of you, you're splitting, or we pick this. So when we went for it, we wanted 3 sculptures and 4 prime locations. When we got to the table, we ended up getting 1 because they actually didn't even want to give us the 1. They wanted to give it, and we fought for it. And then we had to fight for location because they were going to put us in the dog park. And I said no. So we have a prime location, and you'll see our sculpture soon. That's right in front. But we actually had to show that we could do it. Is that making sense? That we had the experience to make that happen. Then when we got inside the building, there was a lot of back and forth on prime locations. And what people don't know is what we end up doing is a lot of what we're doing up front is off volunteer backs. And we got to the point where I had to say, just give us our location and our money, and we don't care where it is, because we're going to knock it out the park. And so we didn't get prime location. But if you go in there, we have the best art. We already, we're going to Africa now. People
Do you think you not getting the prime location has anything to do with your race? I mean, the mere fact that they going to try to give you a dog park, I'm like, what?
It had, so you know what? Who knows? They didn't like give me the dog park. I don't assume to know, but I do know the person who wanted it, they just wanted it all. And they wanted to tell their own story. They wanted it all. I said we were doing 4. I said, I started off with give me 3, just like they started off wanting it all. I started off giving me 3. And then we ended with, they wanted 3. They got 3. We got 1. On the inside, we said, let's come up with things. I said, let's come up with a thematic thing so we all are on the same page. And what I decided, the reason I decided just give me is because I don't have a staff just sitting there like they do. So it still comes down to how I was going to spend my time. And you don't start getting paid until you get the agreement, right? And so they have staff to keep fighting whether we should get primeness. I didn't have staff to do that. So I said, give me where we got. And you can go there and see it. We ended up with 2 extra spots because we kept something that was already there. But that's how we did it. And we compete with people that have been doing it longer. But those are the same people that I'm telling they don't pay Black people enough to do the work anyway. So, and that's just the art piece. I don't want to just talk about.
Alandes was very diplomatic.
Yeah, I'm trying to be.
I understand.
And I understand maybe why. But if you listen to her entire testimony that whole time, how many times did she say the word fight? Yeah, probably about a couple dozen times that she was telling that story, right? Yeah. And you know that race was first of all, what's the name of your organization again, Alandes?
Black, and I'm not going back to Toby. You're not changing my Black Art Speaks. And I'm
not saying that you should. I'm not saying that you should, but I'm just telling you that anytime that you have that associated with anything that you're going on, that is going to do something to individuals who do not look like you, who are reviewing whatever it is that you're asking for. Yep. She talked about fighting. She's talking about having people who look like her advocating in there. This just lets you know how strong. And I really hope any of my white friends who are listening to this really evaluates and listens to what she said, because I listen to words that people speak for understanding, not to just talk. And it is so clear how much race plays a factor in these things. CSO can roll up. I ain't even got to know really what you're doing all the way, dog. I'm here 8 million. I ain't really got to even know what you're doing. Just 8 million. What's up, man? Go on,
and the response is, well, I don't know their numbers. I'm not going to run her off their numbers. If it was someone else, you'll be done browbeat us for every single to the penny.
Absolutely. And I get they've been around for a while. They have a track record. I get all of that. I'm not trying to minimize any of that. But what I'm saying is that often, even all things being equal, when you're Black, you got to jump through way more hoops. You got to prove way more than others have to prove that you are capable of doing the job. You got to answer more questions. You got to show more proof. You got to have more people step up for you. And that's just the tale of the story.
I'm gonna start something.
And that's the reason why when I was on council, we had the Human Health Service money, right? It goes back to United Way. The reason why we had it underneath the city is because what we found is many of the Black organizations were not getting the funding. Just for example, the Cincinnati Black Theater Company, they were not getting the funding from there. So we took it underneath our realms. And so particularly many of the Black council members fought for the Black small organizations to get money, to make sure that they got a piece of that pie. Now what they've done is they put it back over there with United Way, who's supposed to be raising their own money, to manage our dollars. And I want to know how many organizations, how many Black organizations are being able to get funded from that source of money. I guarantee you it's less than it was beforehand. And that's why we had it underneath the city, because we had more control over it and making sure these organizations were getting a piece of the pie, as opposed to being underneath the United Way and they were never getting a piece of it. Nothing, because they got to keep jumping through hoops and hoops and hoops and hoops. And they keep changing the goal line for the Black organizations, which is a shame.
And I will take, so I'm going to say a little bit about the United Way and then respond to the other piece. So first of all, I get United Way money now, and there is a good group of small and high folks who's getting United Way money. I don't know it in comparison, so I will go look. I try to look at who they are before I even ask for people's money, because I don't want to be in the bed with the wrong group. And so I will look at that. I will say that what we've asked for lately is less of money and more of power. So what I've said is, if you're giving money to Black creatives, then let me decide who get it. Because what happens is, not only do they decide who gets it, they decide what art we show. They decide what part of history we show by saying who gets it, if that's making any sense. So you shouldn't tell me when I can talk about James Brown. You shouldn't be able to tell me what I can say about the Underground Railroad. You get what I'm saying? So they don't just pick you, they pick what you can talk about. And so what I've said is, the only person who should be picking us is us, because we know how it impacts our community. We know what our community needs. So like with Blink, which we're a part of now, Blink is huge. What I've said is, if we don't figure out how to make sure local Black artists gets paid in Blink, then I'm gonna create my own Don't Blink. Quit blinking on us. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so you normally say what you're gonna do, and then you sit down and say what they're gonna do. So then I've said that Blink is 4 days, when our community needs lights all year long, beautiful, because it deters violence. It really, really does. And I've said that. So now I get to say, here's the data. You're doing this. How much are you giving me to light up our communities? That's making sense. So it's kind of like a strategy. But if they go to Bond Hill, Laketa, you know this, if they go to Bond Hill and Bond Hill says, I don't agree with her, then I don't get to do it. Does that make sense? That's what I mean by together. If we're not together, we're not strong. I'm only strong because of the people who support me.
And then you'll get.
So going back to that, let me just jump in real quick.
Yeah,
so going back to that Riverbend conversation, there was a back and forth between Anna Albee, who was the person who's the main sponsor of the bill, and the mayor. And apparently, and I didn't watch it, but the way it's being reported through media is that he grilled her about, you know, why the symphony was seeking $8 million and how they came in with that figure. And they went back and forth. And at some point, here's a quote in the Inquirer. When he asked Albee whether the project would succeed without the city's investment and what the symphony's fundraising gap is, Albee said it wasn't her place to, quote unquote, rattle off numbers. He allegedly responded, I respectfully disagree. I do think it's your place. This is council's job to vet these kind of issues before making investments. So it was a 5-4 split. The people who voted for the spending were Anna Albee, Seth Walsh, Evan Nolan, Mika Owens, and Ryan James. The people who voted against it were Mark Jeffrey, Scotty Johnson, Jan-Michelle Lemon-Kearney, and Jeff Cramerding. Just so people know, so there was a split on it. And some people said it was reckless and irresponsible, which, you know, for me, you know, I get the investment. I can understand that, but it feels like there might be some other priorities in the cities that could use that kind of money and that kind of attention. But I just want to make it be clear that so people who didn't read the article, there was a split. There was some pushback. There is some pushback on it. You know, we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. And if everyone sends an email to say that should not have happened, and you just send it to their group email and you say, I'd like to understand why this is happening and that's not what we want, then they don't have a choice but to respond to that.
and they will see it. But let me bring up something else.
I was hoping that we had who voted for it. Those 5 people who voted for it. And again, I don't know. I don't know what questions were done by other media or even us in terms of. But those 5 who voted for it owe taxpayers an explanation as to why they voted for it.
Absolutely.
Why are 5 people voting for $8 million that they don't know the answers to? And if Anna Albee knew the answers to those questions and refused to share them, it's not your place to talk about numbers. And you about to give away $8 million in tech. Like, the fact that she was able to get that off and 4 other council people voted for that. That's what I mean by voters. Those of y'all who voted for the Democratic slate. I don't have to name names. I told you, look at the votes. Look at the votes. I ain't got to name.
That implies that if we had a majority of Republicans, would the vote be any different, though?
I would expect that more from Republicans, maybe than I would from a Democratic council. So for those who out there who make that argument that the Democrats ain't no different than the Republicans, maybe they're right.
I agree.
Maybe some Democrats on council ain't that much different from a corporate standpoint than what some Republicans would do.
I think.
Right.
I like the diversity.
How do you spend $8 million to go outside of the city? Like you're spending taxpayer dollars from the city to pay for something outside of the city. You have no control or no jurisdiction over. I don't understand that.
Those people are going to come straight back down to Cincinnati and go to parties. Y'all know that. That's what's going to happen.
That may happen, Nathan. But I will say this. Here's the other thing that you need to look at. And here's the question. Here's the thing that you can ask about this. Okay, what percentage of shows that take place out at Riverbend cater to a Black audience?
Exactly.
Does that matter?
It absolutely matters.
Yes, it does.
Why?
Absolutely, it matters. It matters for this reason. So if white folks is telling you they scared to come downtown and spend money, right, because they don't think it's safe, and 90% of the shows out at Riverbend cater to white audiences, that blows up your argument that they're gonna come downtown and spend money. They scared.
No,
they scared, right?
No, not necessarily. Yeah. Plenty of white people go downtown and they spend their money.
So then we're back to that whole I'm scared to come downtown, which I don't disagree with that. So we're back to this whole white folks scared to come downtown because it's unsafe is a bunch of baloney. Is that what you're saying?
I think you're speaking in generalities, and the reality is that while there may be a small percentage of people who are reacting to the media stimuli and they're afraid to come downtown, there's a lot of people who go downtown all the time, Black and white. So let's say you got a country artist that goes to Riverbend, and then you got after parties in downtown. That benefits the city. It benefits the Uber drivers, the Lyft drivers. You got to go back and forth. That's a nice little change right there. It benefits the DJs and the people that work downtown, the restaurants. It benefits. It don't have to just be a Black act to benefit the city and even benefit Black people.
I agree. I agree that it doesn't just have to be a Black act. I do want to, like, this gun violence thing, I need to put it over to the left because they are using that to weaponize things in a bigger way than it should be. So they're using it not to actually build infrastructure in your neighborhoods because they say they're trying to solve for the fact you're leaving the neighborhoods and go shoot downtown. It should not be this big of every act of violence should be something that we act and respond to, but to do this in such a collective manner to make it seem like that is doing this is just unfair. And it's actually allowing people to spend dollars differently because we're buying into that narrative. That's first. So I'm not buying into that narrative as it relates to this piece. I do agree that it doesn't matter as long as people are actually making the money they need to make, like you're saying, Nate. But it does matter when you say what people are supporting in a community that is made up of 45% Black people.
Exactly.
And that's what is flawed. And that's what, going back to your original point, we own. Period.
I agree with you.
We own it.
Let me bring up something else. I was hoping to have Tamar's supposed to be with us, and so I kind of tailored some of the questions because, just looking back at the numbers of all the demographics, I'm going to the election. of November 2024, the presidential election. And of all the demographics that voted against the current administration, Black females were at the very top. And so I saw this video clip, and maybe other people have seen it, of a Trump supporter who now she's regretting her vote. And I thought, I wonder how Black females feel about this. I want to play it real quick, and I want to get everybody in the Cookout's opinion, but I want to get Alandes and Laketa's opinion on it first, if possible. But check this out. It comes up here. Yeah, check this out. It's going to be real quick. There might be some language. My apologies, but check this out.
Say something to President Trump and he was going to hear you right now, what would it be?
You are a worthless pile of
And you voted for him how many times?
3 times. That was my bad. Apparently, I'm an idiot.
At least this
So
former
my
Trump.
question is this, and I mean, I'm not trying to harp on the president or anything like that, but when you, let me start this. When Black women hear that, and overwhelmingly Black women over and over again said, I see problems, I see problems, I see problems. When you hear, and then that's not the only video I'm sure that maybe you've seen, there's a lot of like people who are now regretting their vote for whatever reason. What is the thing that jumps in your mind as a Black woman? Is
So
this
I saw
every
that.
day?
I saw it, and the first thing I saw that video, and the only thing I thought was, yep, you're an idiot. And then I thought, you're a selfish idiot. So, and that was it. It didn't move me or make me think I did anything wrong, but selfishness is what would make people have gone that way. And the other thing is, she at least agreed with me that she's an idiot. And that was it. I didn't spend another moment on it because I don't really care.
For me, it made me chuckle, and I'm like, finally, I feel like you finally understanding and getting it. And you know, I'm not saying you're getting everything, but you finally coming around to the point that we as Black women have always said something is a problem and something's wrong. So, I mean, it may be a little late, but I'm glad you finally got there. But it's a little late right now, and I'm like, so what are you going to do about it differently?
And I don't think she got there. So you got to understand that selfish people, they only get there because it impacts them. They're not there. They don't agree with us at all. It's just something impacted them personally. It was unintended consequences. So
Right.
I don't think you moved her to agree with why I didn't vote for him, in my own opinion. That's why I agree she's an idiot.
Yes, I mean, even for the Hispanic, a lot of so many Hispanics, you know, and Latinas and all that voted for him, and I'm like, I don't understand that, you know. So the whole thing, the whole thing of it, I don't understand. But you know, I get she may not get it, but I'm like, I think if he was able to get, you know, run again, that she wouldn't vote for him. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. I think that she finally arrived to that point, because let me say, the only people who are forgetful is us. They not forgetful. They get to that ballot box and they remember. We're the ones that forgetful. We get to the ballot box and forget.
So the question was posed to her, if she had a chance to say something to Donald Trump, what would she say? So I want to flip it. If you had a chance to say something to her, what would you say to her?
I'd like to know what made you finally realize that you was an idiot.
I would say miss me with the apology. Miss me with that. Because I said it earlier, you know, fool me once, shame on me. Or I mean, shame on you. Fool me twice.
Okay, Bush.
George W. Bush. Yeah, I messed that up just like he did.
And you told me no cussing on your show, so I can't tell you what I say.
Ooh.
But the reality is,
Well,
she said it took her the third time before she realized he wasn't about nothing. I give you one. I give you the first time he ran, because he was a contrarian candidate. Maybe you bought into the he might shake up the establishment. I'll give it to you. I'm willing to give people that first time. But after January 6th, after everything that he did, after he bungled COVID and did all of that and the 34 felony convictions, you voted for him against Joe Biden, even after all of that. So even after he killed all them millions of people in COVID, you voted for him again. And then you came back for thirds. I'm sorry. If it took you that long to get it, I said this morning, go back and look at her transcript. See what was the highest grade level of education that she completed. I really want to know that, because if it took you 12 years and 3 presidential elections to finally figure out Donald Trump ain't about nothing, then I got to say your cognitive abilities are challenged. And
Well,
I
I
say
would say that
all the due respect
I
that I
think a
can
lot
use.
of people are that his first time around, they were happy about what was going on in the economy, not realizing that had nothing to do with him. That was Obama's economy. So that's one of the reasons why people don't understand that what you inherit is not necessarily what's going on right today is not necessarily your economy. It was the person's before you economy. And so they get happy about what's going on. And I think that's where I mean, that's even blacks. But like, well, I know I was working. The economy was great. I was doing this and I was doing that. That was not Trump. He was in office at that point, but that was a downfall from Obama. And people don't realize that. So that's why I say the first time around, I don't necessarily fault them, because you have people thinking that all what they were doing and what they, even the stimulus money. Oh, he gave us stimulus money. That wasn't part of his administration, silly. And so I don't think that they realized that trickle down effect had nothing to do with him. But
Well,
they were giving him the benefit.
Here's a question, and that's true. And Obama has said as much. He said something, I don't know, early this year or maybe late last year at a public event. He said that was my economy, which was hilarious. Got a lot of laughs on it, but because nothing is funnier than the truth. But here's my question. This is the cookout. Is Amanda invited to the cookout? Are people who voted for Trump but now have seen, the light, so to speak, are they invited to the cookout? Like, what do we do with folks like this?
Keep them where they is at. Stay on over there. You was there. Keep, you don't got to come over. I'm glad you don't, came away from that, but that don't mean you still coming to my party.
I think they got to come clean. It's not just enough. It's not just enough to say that you regret the decision. You got to come clean with why you made the decision that you made. That's the part for me that is not like true repentance, right? Is not just saying that you're sorry, but then if something else come around, you would do the exact same thing again. This is the lady who told you she voted for him 3 times. So I'm going to need a little bit more from you.
What do you need, Kevin? She said, I was an idiot.
She said, apparently. And even that, you said something else that I'd have told. I said, sweetie, take the apparently off. Just say I'm an idiot, because the apparently still puts in, that's still a qualifier that she don't want to quite admit to herself.
Yeah, but just because you vote, you're not going to vote for him, doesn't mean you're still a part of our community. She didn't say her reason why. It's not just one thing. And I think we always think it's one thing. It's not. So no, she wasn't invited. She wouldn't be invited. We would need to have a lot more information. And there's a number of people who look like me who not invited. So I think that it really has, and a lot of people who might have voted who not invited. Like, it is really about who stands strong with who we are, how we show up, who gives us grace when we need it, who shows us love when we don't have it, who actually supports us on our bad day and doesn't blame us. Because I don't want to hang out with people who are just appeasing us. What I found out is there's a lot of people who love me that are white and don't love us. And that fact broke my heart when I found out that, they love my family. They don't love Black folks. And when they not invited to my cookout. Is that making sense? Because and that was horrific when I felt, you can ask my husband, it was heartbreaking for me to realize that I had friends that liked my family but didn't like Black people. And so I don't know, maybe some people are not as selective as I am, but a cookout means that I get to relax. A cookout means that I get to just be me.
Right.
And yeah, you have to be careful who we invite to just be with us. So no, she did not get an invitation yet.
Y'all are harsh, man. Michael writes, I love how you all equate in education and intelligence. I think, and Michael is a longtime listener to the show. We've gone back and forth. Michael told me that Donald Trump was going to solve the Ukraine-Russia war before he got in office. And when that happened, just because of who Trump was, that's what he told me. And when I told him that I didn't think that that was actually going to happen, he gave me all the reasons in the world why it wasn't going to happen. So I would never say that there is some of the dumbest people I met on a college campus. My grandfather was one of the most intelligent men I ever met. He didn't finish the 4th grade. It has nothing to do with it. It's about critical thinking skills, the ability to discern the truth, even in a world or an environment where there's so much misinformation. So it's not really about a lack of intelligence. And I've said it, a lot of people, Kevin said it too, there's a lot of people that looked at Trump initially as a contrarian outsider. He's not a real politician. He's a businessman. Heard that a million times. And so that was very attractive to them because they were disillusioned. But so no, nobody is doing that, Michael, but I appreciate your,
just to piggyback on what you just said, and no offense to Michael, but none of what he predicted came out. So was that a lack of education or a lack of intelligence or both on your behalf, Michael? Because you said you believe this guy was going to solve the Ukraine crisis on day one. And a lot of other people like you did that. And here we are, they still at war. And not only that, we're in another war. So I agree with you. Everybody who's book smart may not have common sense, but I will say this, there is a connection between education and intelligence. And if I'm pursuing education, at least that says I'm interested in trying to learn, to gain facts, to gain wisdom. So yeah, intelligence and education might not be the same thing, but they're pretty hard to separate.
Yeah. And let's say education, a lot of people think that means went to college or whatever. It's knowledge is power.
Right, exactly.
It's knowledge. So I don't care how you get it. So Michael, make sure you're understanding what people mean when they say educate, because knowledge is power and knowledge does drive intelligence. So you can actually have an intelligent conversation, and there's no two ways there's no other way to show it. So I could be very, very knowledgeable when it comes to cars. It makes me intelligent with cars. I'm not, so I can't mess with your car. Does that make it? Doesn't mean you go to college for it. I just think that people try to separate it, and you really can't. Knowledge is power. Go get it. And when you get it, you'll respect it.
Yeah. What I would say is, again, I went to UC. I didn't go to college for knowledge. I went for women. I was chasing girls. My buddies was there. I wanted to go to the parties, messed around and got a top flight education because I got there. And I was like, oh man, this is so interesting. It just blew my mind. I spent most of my time later in the years in the library, extending my learning, like really taking deep dives. And like Alandes said, yeah, you can be super intelligent in one thing, and because you don't have experience in another one, maybe you're not so intelligent in it. And that's the same thing about understanding politics, history, how international systems work. Unless you get that education, you don't really know. You just get it from whatever your news is telling you, but you don't really have a foundation for which to actually critically think about it and arrive at, and also challenge your own assumptions and challenge what you don't know. I would say in today's world, challenging your own assumptions and knowing what you don't know and then knowing where to get the information is a lost art. It's a lost art. But another question, let's talk about Afro Man. And real quick, like, he just had this big trial and he was exonerated, and I think a lot of people got a lot of had a lot of fun with some of the videos. I think we can all assume, if we're objective, that this might be what people would call a frivolous lawsuit. So I got a 2-point question. One, did you grow up listening to Afro Man? That's number one. And then number two, it just dawned on me, is Afro Man's civil trial win an indication that things have changed for Black people in the criminal justice system to some degree? Because as frivolous as this appeared to be to me, I wondered if this trial took place 40 years ago, would he have been exonerated? If it took place 30 years ago, would he have been exonerated? If it took place 60 years ago, would he have been exonerated? Loud black man, entertainer, and you got primarily, white police officers alleging he did something, whether it was true or not, alleging he did something. Is this exoneration an example that things have changed for black people? I might read too much into it. What do you think?
No, I don't think so. I mean, and let me first say, exoneration is probably not the right word to use for Afro Man because, the burden of proof was on the officers to make the case, which they didn't. And I think the fact that I kind of jokingly said this, look, Adams County is majority white, majority Republican. Here you got a black man in court going against some police officers. 9 times out of 10, that's a formula for the black man to lose. And so that just goes to show you how garbage these police officers' case was in the first place, and rightfully so. It should have been, I don't even know that it should have made the court. It should have been dismissed with prejudice, even when the first briefs was filed. That's just my opinion, that it shouldn't have even gotten to the civil trial, but it did, and the jury reached the right conclusion. But I get where you're saying, because if you go back during certain periods of history, it didn't matter whether the law was on the side of a black man or not. During the era of Jim Crow and before that, if you was in court, you were guilty at that point as a black person. So from that standpoint, I feel what you're trying to ask. Yes, it's progress, but this would have been an ultimate miscarriage of justice if they would have found in favor of these police officers, because they could show no damages. There's Supreme Court precedents that shows that parody and satire and artist license. I mean, Alandes might even be able to speak to this as well. Opinion, all of those things are protected, protected speech that you can't, sue for defamation for. You got to show clear damages that you can actually not, I felt this way, but you got to show actual damages. Nothing about this case said it would have or should have been a win. So from that standpoint, I don't want to give it too much credit because the outcome is what it should have been regardless of race. But I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, because it looks like he got a fair trial. And history is littered in this country of black people who didn't get fair trials, right? And you look at it and you're like, well, how do you even bring this case? And you got people that spent a lifetime in jail. And in some cases, people who received the death penalty. And then posthumously, we look at their case and they're like, there was never a case here, or it was paper thin. So, but what do you think, Laketa, Alandes?
For me, I mean, I don't know. You say you had a fair trial, and I'm like, I don't know. Would I say fair? Just because he won doesn't mean it was a fair trial, because it shouldn't have been one in the first place. I think if it would have been anyone else, they wouldn't even have been a trial. So, I mean, yes, I'm he won, but I don't even, like has been said, I don't even understand why it was there in the first place. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's good that he came out on the side that he did. And other than that, I have nothing else.
It sounds strange. It was like it looks like their feelings was hurt. They were embarrassed. I don't know if they took the $400 or is some money they said that they thought he took. And I don't know, when people's feelings are hurt, I wonder who kept saying, let's sue. Like it almost just felt like feelings hurt and somebody should have stopped them before it went to this point. But
sounds to me like feelings was hurt and it was like, he got some money.
And embarrassment. But people show raids all the time. I think it was just how he showed it and the fact it actually had people looking and laughing. And, I really just think they were embarrassed.
You muted, Nathan.
True or false? Thank you. True or false? Afro Man needs to leave Adams County immediately.
False.
True.
Alandes, what do you think?
Only if he wants to.
Because I'm just wondering, You're in Adams County. You've embarrassed these officers. Now you just beat them in court, and during the court, you've embarrassed them even more. You gonna stay out there, bruh? If Afro Man was a family member, would you recommend that he move?
I recommend that he change that outfit, but that'd be about it.
Here's what I think. Here's what I would say to Afro Man. If you are gonna stay out there, then make sure you straight. Because the first time you step out of line, they gonna as much as they can get you to the fullest extent of the law. That's what they're gonna do, whatever you're doing. So if you're gonna stay out there, keep your nose clean. Now, if you're keeping your nose clean and they can't really, I mean, they can, but it would be obvious if they were trying to target him or were just messing with him, you know, then Adams County might turn around and get sued where he might want to make a case of, you know, harassment by the police or profiling or targeting. So they can't just kind of pull him over for no reason every time you turn around. Like that would be kind of obvious. So I think the police can't really target him and go after him without just cause. But I'm saying Afro Man better be careful because they're going to be looking for any little thing to be able to get at him.
Yeah, be careful and be ready because you could sue him and he could make some money. Like, because really and truly, you got to remember, it was people who voted to say that. You know what I'm saying? It was a jury that actually made the decision. So they probably are not just feeling mad at him.
Well, listen, that's all I got. I appreciate everybody's time. Laketa, I'm glad you was able to jump on. Alandes, thank you for your time. We're planning to be back next Tuesday and Friday at 1:15 p.m. Have a great weekend, everybody. And
Laketa, I'm gonna figure out how to contact you. So, like, I got to get with you.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much to the audience. Really appreciate you. Have a great Friday and have a great weekend.
All right.